Bonjour à tous et bienvenue chez les frères de bière belges. Don't worry, I'm not gonna do this in French. My French is not good enough for that. But we are gonna talk about a French beer today. I say French, it is actually in French Flanders, but it is right across the border, so it is in France. Today we are gonna talk about the Tripel Grand Reserve by Trois Monts. And of course we are gonna talk about the brewery first. First things first, the brewery is in fact not called Trois Monts. It is nicknamed Trois Monts because their most famous beers are called Trois Monts. The brewery is actually called Brasserie de Sylvestre. It is located in Saint-Sylvestre-Capelle in Nord-Pas-de-Calais in French Flanders, so that's France, not so far from Dunkirk, which most of you will know. And they used to make several beers like Biere, Biere de Garde, but they rebranded most of them to Trois Monts because that was their most famous brand. Why Trois Monts? Well, it's named after the three mountains, or need I say hills, because they are between 150 and 200 meters high. Two of those hills are in France and one of those hills is in Belgium. The one in Belgium is Mont Noir, or the Zwartberg, the Black Hill, and the Mont Cassel and Mont des Cats in France. Mont des Cats, we have talked about that before because they have their own abbey and brewery. I'll put a link up here. But this story starts way before that. Now, I could not find an exact foundation date, but records state that it already existed before the French Revolution in 1789. So that's the oldest, those are the oldest records that I found. Now, French Flanders already had a brewing tradition in the early 1600s, and they made mainly Biere de Garde. Biere de Garde is a beer to keep, and is actually a French Flemish. It's that border region, but their take on what we would call a farmhouse ale or a saison. Yet be it is top fermented, but it is stronger and heavier, more flavored. Like a normal saison is dry and is thirst quenching, but a Biere de Garde is often more herbal, a bit higher in ABV, often made with lightly kilned malts, and mostly demonstrates a rather unique flavor palette with most of the times an earthy character, some herbs, some spices, some woody undertones, because oftentimes it was kept in wooden barrels, and sometimes even anise. So yeah, close to a farmhouse ale. The idea is the same, but slightly different take on it. Bière de Garde was traditionally stored in champagne bottles, and however some people might find this elitist. There was no elitist agenda. This is more of a coincidence because the Champagne region is about 70-75 kilometers away, and it was actually just convenient and cheap to use the same bottles. They could interchange the bottles. They just gave it a rinse and filled it up with beer after using them. Anywho, I'm getting ahead of myself. That was the beer, but back to the brewery. Like I said, Brasserie Saint-Sylvestre, named after, nicknamed Trois Monts, Three Hills, after the three hills in the region. Even though it existed before 1789, the history of, this story actually starts in 1920. 1920, when Rémy Ricourt and Marie Savage buy the local brewery, small beer brewery. And I say small beer or little beer. In Dutch or in Flemish we also have a saying called klein bier, which is like the rest or not important. But back in those days they made a lot of small beer. So next to the Biere de Garde that was made on the farms, small beer, little beer, was a very low alcoholic beer, about between 1 and 2.5-3% ABV, and was very widespread. Back in those days, even children drank beer because it was only 1 or 2% ABV. These days we call it table beer, tafelbier, and even that's a bit higher in alcohol these days. They keep brewing that little beer, that's low alcoholic beer, and somewhere along they have a son, Pierre, and when he comes to age, he attends brewing school in Nancy, and he starts traveling quite a bit. Now, during World War II, Pierre takes over. Fortunately, the brewery didn't see a lot of troubles in World War II. But Pierre takes over, and with his background in mind, he develops new recipes with higher ABVs like Bock and Pilsner beer. And he also introduces a canning line and starts bottling wine for the neighboring wine domains. And they even bottle rum in addition to the beer, just to make a few extra bucks. After that, let's make a jump to 1984. Pierre and his sons developed the Trois Monts beer. Now this story reminds me of Safe Beer, about which we are going to talk in the future, but that's also a beer that's based on tales of old recipes of classic beers from that region. And they do a lot of research, they talk a lot with many people from the neighboring boroughs, and they get to that recipe, or they actually they engineer a recipe based on all those stories, and it's an instant hit. Back in those days, they actually rebranded the whole thing, because that was the Trois Monts beer, but these days you have the Trois Monts Biere de Flandre, which was Biere de Flandre before. They have an whole new range under the Trois Monts brand. And today, Pierre Marchica, the great grandson of Remy, is the 4th generation brewer in the Brasserie de Sylvestre. If you look it up today, you will see that pre-COVID they had blank walls outside, but now post-COVID they invested quite a bit, they modernized some things, and they even put the Trois Monts brand on the wall. And I do think that underneath it says proud traditional family brewery since 1920 or something. It is in French and I forgot to write it down, but it's something along those lines. And of course they are proud because they do have that tradition. They are a family brewery since 1920, so over 100 years. Unfortunately, I missed their 100th anniversary. I don't think they did anything special for that. But I got to know this brewery because I've talked about this man before. I used to have a teacher who taught me many things about beer. I bought a lot of books from him, and when I went to pick up those books, he offered me a beer, and when a local beer legend offers you a beer, you don't say no. And that was the standard Tripel by Trois Monts. Back in the days, he had to drive all the way to France to get that. These days we can buy it in some stores here, even though I actually bought this bottle in France myself. I went climbing in Semur-en-Auxois, and I saw this bottle in a store, and immediately I bought it because I was so impressed by that brewery back then. So let's hope this one is at least as good. Another reason why Trois Monts or Saint-Sylvestre can be proud is that despite having 220 registered breweries in 1900, today only one remains, and that is Trois Monts itself. Of course, there is still Monts Beer. That's also the French Flanders region, but they don't see that as just a brewery, because that's actually an abbey. That's also why they call it the fake Trappist. But anywho, so this beer, this bottle I bought in Semur-en-Auxois when I went climbing. I saw this in the store and I immediately needed to have it. Like I said, Trois Monts made quite the impression on me. I hope that this is at least as good. I haven't tasted this before, but this is the Tripel Grand Reserve, so not the standard triple. This is one of those Biere de Garde, well, not really the farmhouse ale, but this is the triple, which has been aged, and it has a 9.5% ABV. I don't know what the bottle tells us more. Bière de fermentation haute de la Flandre française. Special beer with a top fermentation from French Flanders. Okay. Aha. So, style triple. Nose, intense aromas of banana, crème caramel, and nuts. Okay. Looks, orangey blonde. With a nice white foam, and for the taste, fruity, malty, slightly caramelized, spicy notes, and a bit of vanilla. Well, it has been aged on oak barrels, so that explains the vanilla. Apparently they did use 2 different yeast strains for this. And they did use barley and corn. Okay, I am very curious. I've been waiting for quite a while to open this bottle up, so yeah, let's not wait any longer. Now, this is the first time that I encountered this kind of cap. So let's see how we get this off. I'm guessing just deforming it. There we go. Some nice fumes in there. I did keep this bottle stored horizontally, so nice wet cork. Ooh. A nice caramelized sweet malty scent. Again, a branded cork. Monts Beer, Monts Cassel, and Monts de Récollet. Trois Monts. Monts de Récollet is actually the Mont Noir that I talked about, but that wasn't French enough. Okay, interesting, very interesting. Yeah, that is indeed the color that they promised on the label. Orangey blonde or a nice caramel amber. I'm gonna cap it off for now. As usual, we don't want to lose those lovely aromas. This is, by the way, also a rebranding. I believe that back in the days, the Tripel Grand Reserve had a pink label. A few years back, they rebranded everything into beige, black, more neutral. Okay, some tiny pearls, some slight bubbling, not heavily carbonated, even though a very nice head of foam appeared, which is slightly off-white. Like I said, slightly sweet, a bit of caramel in there. Indeed, some banana, reminds me of the Westmalle Tripel. Not too much carbon dioxide, not too much alcohol in there. So it's quite neutral, quite pleasant in the nose. Quite malty. Ooh, wow. This is indeed quite special. At first glance, this is way more carbonated than it seems in the glass. Has a very full mouthfeel. It's very refreshing as well. Quite dry, even though it's quite sweet as well. So that is pretty special. It is a I haven't had that before actually. So a dry tasting beer that is still quite sweet. Normally a dry beer doesn't have a lot of rest sugar, and this is, yeah, slightly sugary for a dry beer. So very strange. I do get some herbal notes in there, a tiny hint of vanilla indeed, but mainly some herbs or spices, some banana. Oh, absolutely lovely. So it is quite heavy, of course. Bear in mind it is a 9.5% ABV. It is quite boozy, but because of that slight caramel tone, it doesn't come in that heavy. Again, the carbonation doesn't help when it comes to boosting alcohol. But yeah, this is a perfect marriage between dry, herbal and sweet. Again, a very balanced beer. And this is actually everything I hoped that it would be. Yeah, absolutely lovely. So to round things up, and I will go immediately to the scoring. Lovely color, great scent, awesome taste. So this is for me a great combination between a slightly sweet herbal triple, which I absolutely adore, and a farmhouse ale, of which I'm a big fan. So yeah, I would even call this a farmhouse triple or whatever you want. The earthy tones, even the nuts that they wrote about on the label are present. Very well rounded, very complex. Every sip that I take, I discover new tastes. So, like I said, very balanced as well. I do taste the wood aging in there as well, but it's not dominant. It's more of a pleasant detail. So yeah, awesome beer, and I think I would actually rate this like a 4.25 even in Untapped. Yeah, 4.25, 8.5 out of 10. Because this is the kind of beer that I absolutely love, and I wish I had more bottles to share with some people. But nonetheless, I will get my hands on some. I'm sure of it. That all being said, I am gonna leave it at that. As usual, I'm gonna enjoy this a bit further off camera because, well, it's quite a lot. As usual, if you guys like this video, hit the thumbs up, let me know, show me the love. If you want to see more, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and you'll get notifications whenever I upload something. You'll be the first to see it. If you have any questions, remarks, let me know down in the comments, and I will see you guys again in the next video. Cheers, you guys.